Hello, everybody. Greetings to all. Welcome to the Snooker Hall podcast. I'm Dan Murren, and I'm a very, very excited snooker fan. We are down to the final four at the 2026 Snooker World Championship. So far, this has been a tournament of ups and downs, amazing snooker. There has been something for everybody. We've had washout matches. We've had matches that have gone down to the final few balls in deciding frames. We've had good snooker, we've had bad snooker at times, but we have had fun, and that's the most important thing. I've really enjoyed it so far. I don't want to keep you all day. This will be a fairly brief episode, and I think it's my first solo episode in about 6 months, actually. But there are some talking points which need to be addressed. Regular listeners to this show will know that I don't fluff, I don't pander, I say it as I see it. I think some of the performers, it's hard to say they should be embarrassed with their performance, but given how some of the debutants performed under immense pressure without the experience of knowing the Crucible, I think there are some more seasoned pros who should have done a lot better. The two who stand out to me, we'll go with the slightly less bad performance. Zhang Anda. He was so far ahead of Mark Allen, and Mark wasn't playing well. Zhang, he did really well in qualifying. I think it was 5 centuries in his Judgment Day match, so he's clearly in form. But was it 6-2 or was it 6-4? Anyway, Mark won a series of frames on the bounce. And it wasn't really a close match in the end. Zhang just fell apart. That's 5 Crucible appearances for him now, and he's still to win a match. He's a good player, but I've said for years that his style is not suited to the Crucible. He's too ponderous, he's slow. He's an amazing player technically, but he's so boring to watch. He is not an exciting player. I can't say I'm too disappointed that he went out. I did fancy Mark Allen to do quite well in this tournament, and, well, more to say on that in a moment. But the other player I was really disappointed with, obviously, Jack Jones. To lose 10-2 against Mark Selby, alright, it's a lot better than I could do, of course. But he didn't put up a fight. I don't know why. 15 out of 16 seeds going through. The odds, you might say, were in Mark's favour, but it's just 10-2 it's just not good enough for someone who is supposed to have Crucible pedigree. He's had one good run. He made the final, and I'm not going to say he threw the final away in the first session, but he kind of did. Kyren was 7-1 up after the first session, and he's always playing catch-up. He's a good player. He knows how to win long matches sometimes. But this idea that he's a Crucible specialist because he had one run to the final, it's nonsense. It's just nonsense. He has proven nothing in the last 2 years. He is slowly falling back down the rankings again. He's not a top 16 player. He just isn't. That may sound harsh, but you know what? It is harsh. It's the final 32 players. It's the World Championship at the Crucible. And he's put in a performance like that. It just wasn't good enough. Mark Selby played well, but he could have played a lot better. I'm not a fan of Jack Jones' style. I know it's easy to jump on him and jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, it's boring, it's slow, it's passive. But it is. It's not fun to watch. It's not entertaining. Jack has some work to do if he wants to get back to winning ways at the Crucible. Speaking of Jack Jones, the player who beat him in that final a few years ago, Kyren Wilson. Great win for Kyren in the first round there. He's 7-3 down. He's one ball away, more or less, from being 8-3 down. And if Stan Moody is to be believed in his post-match interview, that would have been the match over. I thought it was 1st to 10, not 1st to 8. We'll come on to Stan's attitude in a minute. But at 8-3 down, Kyren would have been facing a mountain. But at 7-4, that was such a big turning point. Let's talk about what happened there. Kyren needed 3 snookers, and he got them. Now that can happen, but it should not happen in the way it did. Stan was complacent, he was cocky. That attitude's not good enough at the Crucible. You're playing a former world champion, the current holder of the Paul Hunter Trophy. He won the Masters in January, and you're going to throw out comments like that. I was really unimpressed with Stan's attitude. I know he's a young man. He's not just inexperienced, he's immature. A few occasions on Judgment Day, that immaturity came out. When he sits in his chair, he looks like a mopey teenager or an angry guest on the Jeremy Kyle show. For someone who has yet to achieve anything in the sport, he's far too pleased with himself. And I think his attitude towards others could use some work. The incident which sticks out most to me is not actually the throwing away of a 3 snooker lead because he got cocky and thought it was in the bag. It's actually when he missed a rest shot. He almost just threw the rest back at the referee as if to say, well, I'm angry, so it's your job to put the rest back. Absolutely unacceptable. He's 19, fine. He was behaving like a 4-year-old child. Honestly, I'm glad he lost. I didn't like seeing a young player behave like that. In the end, Kyren got over the line, and it wasn't really a challenge for him in the end. Stan fell apart. But Kyren, my God, the abuse he got online for fist pumping, having won a match at the World Championship, a match which, let's be honest, a better opponent would have won. He has every right to celebrate. Okay, what difference does it make if he goes and shakes hands first and then does the fist bump? I don't get it. I really don't understand why people were so angry about it. One of the excuses for bashing Kyren was that, well, Stan's only 19. No, Stan is an opponent at the World Championship. Stan is there on merit. He's not there as a wild card, as a charity case, as a Make-A-Wish kid. Stan Moody was there, had the chance to win, blew it, Kyren won. To use Stan Moody's age as an excuse for not celebrating the win is such a patronising attitude. I can't get on board with that. Kyren has every right to celebrate a win. Fist bump before the handshake or after the handshake, who cares? Celebration police out in force. Get over it. Now, if we compare Stan Moody's petulant, immature attitude, by contrast, Liam Pullen, what a breath of fresh air he was. He was competitive, he was mature, he was focused. Okay, he may not be as flashy as Stan Moody, but in my opinion, he looks like he has far more potential than Stan in the mental side of the game, and that's half the battle. You can see the determination when he's at the table, when he's sitting at the chair, when his opponent's at the table, backstage, in interviews. You can hear how determined he is, how much he wants this. He's focused, and as I said, he's mature. He's only a few months older than Stan, but the contrast between the two personalities is chalk and cheese. I know who I'd rather see win, and it's Liam Pullen by a country mile. Last match we'll cover in the first round is the Shaun Murphy-Fan Zhengyi match. It was really, really good. I feared for Shaun. I want Shaun to do well. I know he's a divisive figure. I love him. I think he's fantastic for snooker. But my God, he was pushed to the limit by Fan Zhengyi. You would think that in that deciding frame, if that red to middle goes down, Shaun's going home at the first round. And that would be a shock. That would be a shock. But when the time came, Shaun had the experience, the know-how, the bottle, and the skill to step up when it mattered. And of course, we now know that in the second round match, he won with a session to spare. He can take a few days to regroup, look at his potential path to the final, and see what he needs to do to improve. Given his performance against Zhao Guodong, not much. The performance against Zhao Xintong, I think both players were off their game, and it was more cagey than I thought it would be. But a match that wasn't cagey, Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins. John Higgins continues to deliver value for the punters at the Crucible. I put a tweet out a few days ago. Look at the recent memory of John Higgins' matches at the Crucible. His match against Mark Allen in 2024, down to a decider. Classic. His match against Zhao Guodong last season, 13-11. Classic. The following match against Mark Williams. Classic. This year against Ronnie O'Sullivan, another classic. John Higgins hasn't always been the flashiest of players, but he's given punters great entertainment, and long may it continue. I never thought I'd be rooting for John Higgins from the class of 92, but it appears that I am. I'm a little bit bored of I'm very bored of Ronnie O'Sullivan. I'm fast becoming bored with Mark Williams. It does seem disingenuous now. I can't see, I'm old, I can't pop balls anymore. It's just, you're doing fine. You're doing fine, and I'm so bored of hearing it now. Ronnie O'Sullivan, I've been bored of for years. Everyone who's listened to this podcast before will know that. I think he's a charlatan. I think he's self-serving. I think he's arrogant, and I think he's petulant. There's a lot of spotlight on him, a lot of pressure on him, a lot of expectation on him, and that can't be easy. I know it can't. But something's not right. He's not the player he was, and if anyone dare say anything on social media, you're jumped on. You're accused of not knowing snooker, not liking snooker, not understanding the sport. It's like, Ronnie O'Sullivan's not perfect. Yeah, he's a great player, one of the best ever, the most successful player, clearly. Honestly, I'm bored of talking about Ronnie O'Sullivan. Let's talk about someone who actually deserves our attention. Hussein Fafai beat Judd Trump. Didn't see that coming. I thought Judd would take that one maybe 13-7, 13-8. But fair play to Hussein. He stepped up when he needed to, and he delivered in a moment of pressure. Wu Yiza also beating one of the true all-time greats, Mark Selby, 13-11. That's a big statement win for Wu Yiza. But it was just another example of experience being shown the door in that second round. Judd Trump, Kyren Wilson, Mark Selby, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Williams, all gone in the second round. But maybe it's not entirely true. The semi-final lineup, Wu Yiza versus Mark Allen, Sean Murphy versus John Higgins. There's a fair bit of experience there. Okay, Wu Yiza is one who's not like the others in that sense. But looking at that lineup, I think we'll get a Mark Allen, Sean Murphy final. I do consider the John Higgins victory over Neil Robertson a slight upset. Now, it's not a surprise that John Higgins wins a match at the Crucible, of course not. But once Neil gets going, he's so hard to beat. And I do think he had a slight mental advantage overnight. In the past, I have been somewhat critical of Neil Robertson's tactics and mindset during the match. I think because he's just so good. But it's almost like he doesn't know how good he is. Technically, he's clearly one of the best players of all time. But John Higgins played a really good match. Yes, he had some run of the ball. I think John himself would admit that. I haven't listened to the interviews, but I think John would admit that. It's hard to say that Neil had real, clear-cut chances in those final frames. But you have to work with what you're given, and I've got to tip my hat to John Higgins. A few snooker voices whose opinion I think very highly of considered John Higgins to have played his final against Ronnie O'Sullivan. And I suppose I slightly disagreed with that. This is John Higgins. He's been to the Crucible final 8 times. He knows what he's doing. Okay, he's not 22 anymore, but clearly the man can still play snooker. Looking at it, on paper, I do think Sean Murphy will be a bridge too far. In that quarter-final against Xiao Zhintong, both players were subpar compared to what they can produce. I don't think Sean will be making that mistake again. I do think Sean will take this one, and I've got to say, maybe it will be with something to spare. This could be a 16-9, a 16-10. On the other side of the draw, Wu Yiza and Mark Allen. This really is a clash of styles. In situations like this, Mark Allen is so dangerous. His tablecraft, his experience, his tactical nous will be so important if he's going to beat Wu Yiza. Wu Yiza, we know, his break building is fantastic. As a long potter, he is easily one of the best in the game already. But this match is not going to be about long pots. I just think Mark Allen's going to have too much for him tactically. And I do compare Neil Robertson and Mark Allen. Once Mark Allen gets going, once he's in the balls, he's hard to stop. In general, I do think the two semi-finals will be a little bit more one-sided. I'm going for a Sean Murphy versus Mark Allen final, and I will not complain about that one bit. I arrive in Sheffield on Friday afternoon. I'll be at all sessions of the final, and when I'm not in the Crucible, I'll probably be hanging out in the Graduate. If you do see me in there, pop over, say hello. I'm always up for a bit of snooker chat. A few things I am hoping for when I arrive, and one of them is to do with Rob Walker. I've got to say, Rob Walker seems to divide opinion. I think Rob Walker's quite good at what he does. In fact, no, Rob Walker's very good at what he does, in my opinion. However, there's one thing I really want him to stop doing, and that is saying, Champion du Monde. Say it once, fine, a little bit of a gimmick, but he's saying it too much now. It's annoying, it's cringy, stop it. But the more important one is phones going off in the audience. It's just disgraceful. Time and time and time again, members of the audience are asked, put your phone on silent, put it on Do Not Disturb, or even better, just turn it off. You're not going to be looking at it anyway. Enjoy the match. But time after time, these selfish, ignorant people cannot follow a simple social rule. I don't think I'm out of line by saying, if your phone goes off, out. How many times are people in the audience told, turn off your phone? I just don't understand how you can be so oblivious and so self-absorbed that you just cannot put your phone on silent. Like, how important do you think you are? You're at the Crucible. Enjoy the experience. You don't need your phone. I can't imagine that anyone listening to this will disagree with me. It's just so annoying, and the players hate it. Even John Higgins, during his quarter-final against Neil Robertson, you could see the way he was reacting. It was really winding him up, because it's just so unnecessary. If there's someone having a real problem in the crowd and they need immediate attention, do you know what? I don't think anyone will complain. Well, you'll probably find someone who will complain. This is the modern world. But at least there's a reason for it. There is no reason to have your phone on loud when you're in the Crucible. Turn it off. And I honestly think there should be a policy. If your phone goes off, despite having been warned at least 3-4 times, out. You're not welcome anymore. Out. Okay, rant over. Yes, very much looking forward to this though. I want to look at the positives. Sean Murphy versus Mark Allen final. I did tip Mark Allen to do quite well. I don't think he's going to get it done. I really think Sean Murphy is going to join that elite list of champions who have lifted the old lady trophy at the Crucible more than once. I think Sean Murphy's going to do it and finally truly cement his place, his rightful place, among the greats of modern snooker. Watching the snooker on TV over the past few weeks has given me the bug to return to live snooker. It has been a little while. The last live snooker I was at was the German Masters, so back in February. My calendar for 26-27, I'm definitely heading over to the Northern Ireland Open. That'll be my first trip to the Waterfront Hall. My first trip to Belfast, actually. I've never been, surprisingly. But more or less every time I hear feedback or opinions on that event, it's positive, so why not check it out? I've just secured a few tickets for the German Masters final in Berlin in January 2027, 31st of January if I'm not mistaken. It's become a tradition for me recently. It's geographically, it is the closest event to me, and the Tempodrome is one of my favourite venues. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to watch snooker. The potential events for next season that I'm not confirmed for, but probably will end up going to, given that I'm a London lad, the English Open in Brentwood, possibly the Masters. Not a massive fan in hindsight of the Ali Pali seats. They're really cramped, and now that they're squeezing in a few hundred extra, I'm not sure about that. But the English Open's a big possibility, actually. I have been looking at a weekend in Edinburgh just before Christmas. I do think the Scottish Open is underrated. The fact that a lot of the big boys pull out means that it's a little bit more wide open. We're going to get a surprise in Edinburgh. The last two winners, probably not who you would have bet on before the event, Lepe Fan and Chris Wakelin. Even Gary Wilson before that, actually, probably not one of the favourites. But they lifted the trophy, they earned it. No one can take that away from them. But the one I'm really looking at is the Tour Championship in Manchester. Everything about it just screams, yes, come to Manchester to watch the snooker. So I probably will look into that as well. One event I won't be going to, though, is the Saudi Arabia Snooker Masters. The news was announced very recently that the Saudi Arabia Snooker Masters has been cancelled. By mutual agreement, I think was the term they used, which means that both parties were happy with that. And I just don't get it. I thought it was a 10-year contract. It's all very vague. We all know that the investment in sport from Saudi Arabia is starting to dry up. For a while now, there were rumours about Live Golf, and it has now been confirmed that Saudi Arabia will stop pumping money into Live Golf. It would appear that they're not as interested in pumping money into Newcastle United anymore. They'll be cutting back on boxing. Everything is suffering. They're just not investing as much in any sport, even football. What that means for the World Cup there in a few years is anyone's guess, but FIFA made their bed, they have to lie in it. But for snooker, to end a 10-year contract after 2 editions is pretty embarrassing. And not only the fact that the tournament has ended, the way it has handled is nothing short of shambolic. Some of the players have spoken out publicly about it. Again, hearing messages from players, they're not happy about this. And it's not just the loss of money, It's the fact that it's just been ditched. There's no real explanation. There's no insight. The players have just been told, yeah, that's not happening anymore. Sorry. And even ignoring the fact that it's the so-called fourth major. I've said many times that it's a major only because they've called it that. It's a major in name only. It has no history, it has no prestige, it has no gravitas. None whatsoever. The only thing it had going for it was money. The crowds were sparse at best. During some of those early matches in the first and second rounds, there'd be half a dozen people in the crowd. Okay, maybe for the Ronnie O'Sullivan match in the fifth round or the quarterfinal, there would be a bigger crowd, but you couldn't really say that it's a full audience at those events. And yet we're told it's the fourth major. Any casual fan who steps into snooker and sees that as the fourth major and they see 7 people in the crowd, they're not going to be interested. They're going to think it's a joke. They don't see it as a big event. I've been trying to think of some positives, and the only ones I can take is the fact that in the finals of those tournaments, we had amazing finals. They were great matches, and if you took those matches, transposed them onto another tournament with a bit of history, a little bit of prestige, with an audience that actually cares about snooker, they would have been classics. All-time classic matches. Yes, the players are going to miss the money. A lot of the players are going to miss the ranking points. But can we really say we're upset about this? For me, the tournament has skewed the rankings far more than I thought it would. I remember saying to Dave Hendon that there was a little bit of wariness among some sections of the snooker world. And one comment in particular that does come to mind is, well, what if someone flukes a few matches and ends up number 7 on the 1 year list? Well, okay, well, if that happens, then fine. They've won the matches. Everyone knows the deal going in. High stakes, high risk, but high reward if you do actually win those matches. And let's be honest, in modern snooker, you don't fluke wins against these other top players. It just doesn't happen that often. You might fluke a shot, you might even fluke a frame. But are you really going to fluke a best of 7? I don't think so. But let's look at an example. The fact that Elliot Slesser made the semi-finals, that was a good run for him. He was disappointed not to make the final, as he should be. However, the fact that he was close to automatically qualifying for the World Championship without having to go through Judgment Day, that's just not right. Elliot Slesser, by his standards, has had a poor season. I'm a big fan of Elliot. He's been on this show, he's a wonderful player, and he's a wonderful guy as well. But he's not been that good on the table this season. He hasn't got the results. But yet that one tournament, that one run to a semi-final, nearly carried him to the Crucible. Is that good? I don't think it is. One tournament should not skew the rankings so much, unless maybe it is the World Championship. In terms of the event, a fan's going to miss it? Absolutely not. Will the players miss it? No. Will they miss the money? Yes. Calling this Saudi Arabia Snooker Masters the fourth major is one of snooker's biggest faux pas of recent times. And I don't think anyone can logically disagree with that. I'm all for branding, I'm all for creative marketing, whatever you want to call it, but it's just not the fourth major. It never was, and it appears that it never will be. As I said in the intro, I wanted to keep this episode fairly short, but there are some talking points which needed to be addressed. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate everyone who's checked out the podcast recently. If you want to get in touch, the email address is contactus@thesnookerhall.com. And of course, you can follow the show on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. The handle for all of those platforms is The Snooker Hall. If you could take just a moment and review this podcast with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, it would go a long way to helping more snooker fans find this show. I want to say thank you to everyone who has done that already. In terms of future episodes, only a few guests really lined up. I do need to send a few messages out and get a few more guests on. Neil Foulds is going to come on after the World Championship to help me review what happened in Sheffield. And over the summer, Nick Metcalf will be my guest on the Snooker Hall podcast. He is one of the most respected and recognisable voices in modern snooker. It'll be an honour to have Nick on the show. Keep an eye on your podcast feed for those episodes. I don't want to keep you too long. I hope you go and enjoy the World Championship. Enjoy the sunshine because it's coming and it's going to be here for months on end. Until the next time, take care.